All right, what's going on, everybody? Got news of this story late last night, and I was going to do a video on it, but a little tired, caught the news a little bit late, so I said, let me hold off on this. I'll do it tomorrow. Um, it's a very interesting story, and I'm going to break it down and I'm going to unpack it, and I'm going to give my opinion on the whole story and what my thoughts are on the situation. And this is about Gervonta Davis was involved in a hit and run back in, I believe, November of last year. And it was reported yesterday that he was indicted on 14 criminal charges stemming from this November 2020 hit and run. And it goes on to say that he's also facing charges for failure to report an accident, and his license was suspended at the time. And he also is being indicted on failing to stop at a red light. And it says if convicted of all charges, Davis will face a potential maximum of 7 years and 55 days in prison. And I guess the prosecutors have obtained surveillance footage from a nearby store that shows the Lamborghini collided directly into the store's fence, and the driver was allegedly identified by witnesses as Gervonta Davis. And it said that the officials also say that they saw Davis and the passenger leave the Lamborghini, and they moved into a getaway car. I believe that was a Camaro that they got into and left. So that the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, said 4 people were hospitalized as a result of the crash, but they're expected to be okay. Said, fortunately, the victims in this case were able to survive this alleged hit and run collision with recoverable injuries despite the potential for a worst case scenario. It says, my office will continue to do our part to hold reckless drivers accountable when their harmful actions put innocent lives in jeopardy. Okay. I got to be honest, guys. Obviously, this is not a good look, and I'm not condoning anything Gervonta Davis did. But this happened back in November of 2020. So if this accident was really, really serious, I think we would have had a lot more information brought to us a lot earlier. And again, I'm not questioning the extent of the people's injuries that got hurt here, but we all know, and I've seen several situations, and I know a lot of people who, regardless of how hurt they are or not, they're going to try to play it off and make it look and seem as though they were really injured so they can get a settlement. Again, I can't accuse these people of doing that, but I can suspect them, and I'm not going to rule it out. So I'm not trying to make light of what Gervonta Davis did. It was not a smart thing to do to be involved in a hit and run, get into an accident and leave, drive with a suspended license. We're not condoning all those things. But let's not also rule out that maybe this is being blown out of proportion a little bit. Because we've seen, and I'm not saying we've seen, I'm going to say I've seen, I don't want to speak for other people. I've seen a lot of situations where, people have gotten in accidents, people I know, my friends, relatives, whatever, and they weren't hurt. And they've openly told me they weren't hurt, but they're going to take this to the limit and get a settlement. And I've known people who've gotten settlements before. My friend a couple of years ago got a nice $30,000 settlement. He went through all of the things that he had to do. He went to therapy, whatever, but he wasn't hurt, but he wanted to get paid. So I'm sure these people are going to try and get paid too, because they were hit by a Lamborghini. So obviously they know the person that hit them has a lot of money. And then once they found out that it was Gervonta Davis, of course they're going to do whatever they can to get as much money as they want. And I just find it a little disturbing, and it's just so convenient how as soon as someone got a whiff of this, everyone just jumped on it, and everyone and their brother reported this. It's almost like it was like a celebratory thing for the media to be able to write something negative about a young athlete, a young black athlete. It just fits the media's MO. And they're trying to really sensationalize this like he's going to do some serious time here, which he's probably going to do probation. John Jones was involved in a similar situation, and he did probation. So I know everybody's jumping on this. Everyone wants to sit there and, take pleasure in someone else's shortcomings. I know how people are. And that's the sense I'm getting, because you go on Twitter, whatever. Oh, Gervonta Davis is an idiot. What a dope. What a jerk. Blah 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 blah. And again, I'm not condoning this, but I do suspect, in my opinion, that the story is being a little bit blown out of proportion, and I'm questioning the extent of the actual accident, and I'm questioning the extent of the injuries. Like, were people's lives really in danger here? With this, were they really in serious danger here? I don't know. I question it. I think it's being blown out of proportion. I just think that the media loves to report on stories like this. They love to dump on athletes any mistake or problem someone has in their lives, that if the person's in the public eye, if the person's an athlete, prominent figure, everyone just loves to jump all over it. And I know everyone's going to be like, Beeb, why are you defending Gervonta Davis? I'm not defending anybody. What I am doing is I'm questioning, the story itself in terms of how bad was this whole incident. It's not a good look to be driving without a license. Obviously, that's an offense. It's not a good look for a hit and run. That's a bad look as well. But don't act like this guy, just went out and went on a shooting spree and killed like 50 people. Don't try to make it look worse than it is, just so you can grab a headline and get clicks and sensationalize a story and try to bury somebody just so you can get clicks, and just so you could try to make a story worse than it is, because controversy sells. And don't try to create controversy. Don't try to create more drama where it doesn't exist. The way this is being reported and the way it's being phrased and stuff, and even in the same article, Davis was arrested back in February of 2020 for roughing up his ex-girlfriend. So again, this is just, to me, it's just basically a smear campaign against Davis. Again, the guy's made mistakes. He needs to be held accountable for them. But he's not going to do 7 years in prison for this, guys. To even suggest that that's the case, I just don't see it. Like I said, John Jones was in a similar situation. He got probation, which I think is what Gervonta Davis is going to get as well. But the minute this hit, everyone just jumped all over it. TMZ, CBS Sports, the Baltimore Sun, CBS Baltimore, Boxing Scene, The Zone, East Side Box. Like, everyone just jumped all over this, like it was some gigantic story. And again, let's not act like this guy just went out and committed genocide or something like that, because I just I still question the extent of the accident, how bad the accident really was. If it was as bad as they say it was, where's the footage? Where is this surveillance camera? Where is all this stuff? Well, how come none of this stuff was released? Like when Errol Spence got in his big accident, immediately we saw footage of it. I haven't seen any footage of this. I just think that this could have possibly been. It could have even been a fender bender. I don't know for sure, but again, if it was really a horrific accident, people really were seriously injured, we would have gotten a lot more information about this earlier. This just seems like someone's trying to make Gervonta Davis look bad. Someone's trying to cash in on this accident, I believe. And this is my opinion. I suspect it. I can't say it with certainty. I can't say it unequivocally, but it's definitely in the back of my mind. It's definitely something that I suspect. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is being blown out of proportion, or do you think these people were really hurt? Of course, they're going to go to the hospital again. You get hit by a Lamborghini. You find out that the guy that hit you is a somebody. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to the hospital too. If I can get a quick $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it too. And so let's not rule that out. Let's not rule that out. Okay. Another thing that's being talked about too is Errol Spence. Recently, shout out to Ring IQ. He was mentioning and referencing a video that I believe Errol Spence did with Fight Hub after the fight, the Maurice Hooker fight, the Maurice Hooker Virgil Ortiz fight on Saturday, where Terrence Crawford was there. Errol Spence was there, and Errol Spence was being interviewed after the fight. I guess he was walking back to his car after the fight. He was in the lobby, and he was being interviewed, and he looked inebriated, guys. He looked inebriated. Wasn't really a good look. And it shows causes for concern, in my opinion, because this is a guy that just got hit with a DWI, cracked up I believe it was his Ferrari, if I'm not mistaken, cracked up his Ferrari, was lucky to not be killed in the accident. And you would think that would be a wake-up call for him. But once again, he's out, at a fight, having a good time. He was out with his trainer and, had some people around him, and he was drunk. And you would think that someone would kind of pull him aside and say, hey, man, you got to, why don't you lighten up on that? Why don't you go easy on that? But he was clearly trashed. So you got to ask ourselves, is Errol Spence sabotaging his career? Does he need help? Has he gotten help? And have the people around him also told him, hey, man, you need to try to clean up your act? Now, again, you can't make a guy try to clean up his act. You can only lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. So I can't say one way or the other if people are trying to, talk to him and tell him, hey, man, what you're doing isn't cool, man. This isn't cool. You got to clean up your act. But I think he needs a real stern, authoritative figure in his life that's just going to tell him, hey, man, you got to lay off the sauce here. This is what happened to you before could definitely happen to you again. And I hope he didn't get into a car and drive himself home Saturday night. And I also made a statement before, after the incident happened. I'm going to say first incident because I can't say, again, once again, this is just my opinion. I don't believe the night of that accident was the first time he got behind the wheel of a car under the influence. I just don't. And maybe he was lucky enough to not get into a serious accident like he did that night. But I think the guy needs some serious help. So to me, that's a more serious situation than this Gervonta Davis thing. Because you want to talk about life threatening. That is life threatening for someone like Errol Spence to get behind the wheel of a car in the condition that he's in after that fight. He could hurt himself and hurt others. So to me, that seems to be more of a serious issue. And again, I'm not making light of the Gervonta Davis situation. Obviously, he needs to be shape up, and he needs to be spoken to, and he needs to be counseled as well. But let's not try to make this worse than it is, just so we can get headlines, just so people who don't like Gervonta Davis, who don't like PBC, I'm going to say it, people who are racist, don't just, those types of people don't just jump all over the Gervonta Davis and try to bury him and try to make a situation look worse than it really is. Because I suspect that the accident was not as serious as it's trying to be implied here, in my opinion. But the Errol Spence situation, yeah, man, it's disheartening to see a guy still drinking like that after all that's happened. That, to me, that's an issue. Andre Rodriguez says, Habib, with all respect, but frankly, fuck all that. He's a grown man with enough age to be accountable for his actions, including to vote. Paternal figure, come on. Well, I mean, that's a great point. I'm not going to argue against that. But here's my problem. Here's my problem. I'm seeing all these people around him, and they're not saying, it doesn't seem like they really care about him being drunk like that. Like, if I'm with the person like that and I'm seeing him drunk like that, I'm pulling him out of there. I'm like, come on, man, let's get out of here, man. I don't want people to see you like this. Let me drive you home. To me, it looked like all the people that were around him didn't really think it was an issue for him to be drunk like that. That's just my opinion. That's what I took away from that. If ever I was out with my friends and I seen them trash like that, and I seen them talking to other people or trying to do anything, I'm like, come on, man, you're drunk, man. Let's just get out of here. Let me drive you home. That's what I've done. I'm not going to sit there and let the guy make an ass of himself, right? Or have him be put in a situation with the potential for him to get in trouble or do something wrong or something bad to happen. I'm just seeing everyone around this guy when he's trash like that. No one's doing, like, people are acting like there's nothing wrong. Like it's just another day at the office for this guy. That's my only point. That's my only point. That's what I'm taking away from it, to be perfectly honest with you. JC says, in my opinion, I don't care. I'm not going to shit on Tank, but he did run a red light. Apparently he was lit. We never know because he fled the scene. We don't know. No, he hasn't been accused. That there was 14 charges against him. That was not on the list of charges. That's not even unless someone knows something I don't. But on the list of 14 charges, I don't believe that was the case. He could have been speeding too. So yeah, none of these stories had said anything about him being under the influence. So once again, I don't want to make implications here that aren't true. I really don't. I don't want to make it worse than it has to be, or it is. So, because it says 14 charges. I know hit and run is one of them. Running the red lights, another one. Obviously, he ran the red light, so that could have been an issue. Running a red light and maybe swerving out of the way of someone that was in his way after running the red light, right? Obviously, that person's going. He shouldn't be going. Maybe he had to swerve out of the way of that person, and because he swerved out of the way as a result of running that red light, that's when he hit the fence. That's what I'm trying to, like. He's driving too fast and not being aware and not caring about the traffic signal or the red light, whatever. So that's what I'm saying. Again, none of this is a good look, but this whole 7 years in jail and putting people were in jeopardy of dying or whatever. Okay, the potential, obviously, for how hard did he hit the fence? Who did? And I mean, again, so I don't know. I just don't know how bad this accident really was. I just, to me, if it was as serious as that they're saying it is, I hate to beat a dead horse. We would have been hearing about this a lot earlier. It wouldn't just come out now. Just like anything else, sometimes once someone finds out who actually hit them, and people think about things and have time to scheme or whatever, now all of a sudden they're trying to make this worse than it is, I think, because Tank is a public figure. He's a young athlete. He's a boxer. I think someone's trying to cash in here. I suspect that. So that's just me. So I don't know. I'm not ruling out that he was tipsy, but it wasn't reported that he was. Like when Errol Spence got into his accident, immediately they were saying that he was under the influence. They took the breathalyzer or whatever, and boom. So we don't know. But that's that. And this whole situation with Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, and I just think that another point that Ring IQ made is a lot of these PBC fighters who kind of live that life, like David Benavidez, Gervonta Davis, Errol Spence, and others on that side of the fence, they seem to be getting in a lot of trouble. And you could say that maybe they're not taking their career as serious as they should, and they're not putting themselves or getting themselves in the best possible shape, because again, you could say maybe they're not fighting the best. So you don't have to be at your best if you're not fighting the best. I think Ring IQ, check out him. He's on YouTube. Just do the search for Ring IQ. That video I watched from him yesterday made a lot of good points. So it's like anything else in life. If like you get up every day and you go to work and you're late every day and your boss allows you to be late, then, if you're out drinking, you're out partying, you're not being responsible, or whatever the situation may be, if you're just doing whatever you want to do and you're not taking what you're doing seriously, and you're allowed to continue to go down that path and not have to face any repercussions, then your behavior is not going to change. Right? So if you can win fights not being at your best, then when are you ever going to try to train and be at your best? Because once again, Errol Spence has ballooned up in weight. He's partied. He drinks. Terrence Crawford, when you look at Terrence Crawford, let's be real about the situation. This guy always looks like he's in fighting shape. He's always training. He's always taking care of his body. He's a family man. You never see him drunk at a fight or tipsy at a fight. You never see him looking heavy in between fights. You never hear him of getting in trouble outside of the ring in between fights. So this is why, not only, there's a lot of reasons why I think Crawford would beat Spence, and I think Spence knows this. That's why I think that for the longest time he was avoiding the fight. And then people say, well, Crawford doesn't want to fight him now. He came out and said that he'll probably never fight him, because he's tried to fight him. He actually went and confronted him after a fight. So after a while, you can only ask for a fight so many times. I think at this point, he's saying to himself, I'm just going to forget about it. Why am I even going to get mad and frustrated and get my hopes up high? Because all those guys over at that side of the street, they don't want to fight me. So let's see. And Adrian Broner's another one. Adrian Broner's another one. I forgot to mention him. That's a good point, Outlaw. He said, Broner said, it's best to keep me active so I don't get in trouble. I don't know what that comment means, so I'm not going to read it. Do not know what it means. But yeah, so again, once again, there's a pattern over there. For whatever reason, every time there's a potential big fight to be made and a PBC fighter is involved, like Jamal Charlo versus Canelo, okay? Jamal Charlo versus Canelo, um, Crawford versus Spence, Wilder versus Joshua, whatever. Every time Caleb Plant versus Canelo, you can go down the list of all these fights. Sean Porter versus Crawford, all these fights with PBC fighters looking to fight someone else where it's either the biggest fight in the division or it's the most competitive fight or it's the two best fighters in the division. There's always a history of PBC fighters not being able to close the deal and make the big fights. Even Mayweather, it took him 5 years for that pack. I think maybe 6 or 7 years if you think about it, because they were talking about that fight back in 2009. Yeah, so about 6 years. So that's the thing, and then Crawford comes out and makes a statement about how Canelo doesn't fight black fighters. He avoided Andrade, he avoided Charlo. But again, look who Charlo and Andrade are fighting. And Charlo, I believe, allegedly was offered the fight, and according to even his brother, came out and said he turned the fight down. Like Charlo called out Benavidez. Now he's saying that he doesn't want to fight Benavidez. He's putting up all these stipulations, which leads me to believe that he really doesn't want to fight Benavidez. He didn't expect Benavidez to say, "Yeah, I'll fight you." Same situation. He called out Jacobs. Jacobs rolled up on him, and he kind of changed his tone a little bit. He never ended up fighting Jacobs. Allegedly, a Canelo fight was offered. Canelo came out and said, "I will fight Charlo." He has no problem fighting Charlo. I mean, so for Terence Crawford to make a statement like that when, it seems kind of hypocritical, in my opinion, because he hasn't had a list of a stellar resume in these last couple years. And when you look at some of the guys that he's fought, I mean, his resume pales in comparison to Canelo's. So for him to come out and make a statement like that just kind of caught me off guard. I was surprised to hear it, to be honest with you. I mean, how can you not give Canelo credit for what he's done? And when you look at what he's doing this year alone, he's going to end up fighting 4 times. He's unifying titles. And I bet you at the end of this year, he goes up and fights Beterbiev. I think that fight's going to happen, to be very honest with you. I have a feeling that he'll go up and fight Beterbiev. I just think he will, and I think he'll beat him. So that remark from Crawford kind of took me aback a little bit, caught me off guard. And I think the original quote was, let me read the original quote, because I don't want to misquote the guy. I really don't want to misquote the guy. Let me take a look at that actual quote from Terence Crawford. So when you look at Canelo's career, it looked like he shied away from the black fighters. And then he goes on to mention 2 fighters, Charlo and Andrade. But when you look at the African American fighters, Alvarez has fought he fought Floyd Mayweather, he fought Erislandy Lara, he fought Austin Trout, just recently fought Daniel Jacobs in a unification fight in 2019. So it just seems like Crawford has an issue and believes that Alvarez avoided those two fighters in um, Demetrius Andrade and Jamal Charlo. But again, look at Andrade and look at Charlo and look at their resume. Like they're not fighting the top guys. Well, let's look at Jamal Charlo. Really, let's look at Jamal Charlo. Jamal. I'm sorry. Let's look at Jamal Charlo. Let's take a look at who he fought. You know, he fought. In Jamal Charlo's last two fights, he fought Sergey Derevyanchenko and he fought Dennis Hogan. I mean, I like Derevyanchenko. Don't get me wrong, but can we say that Charlo's avoiding black fighters? He fought two white guys his last two fights. You know, so look at his resume. Look at Charlo. You like, let's look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In his last 6 fights, technically he's only fought one black guy, Brandon Adams. With all due respect to Brandon Adams, not the best of the best there. So in his last 6 fights, Jorge Sebastian Helen is not black. Hugo Centennial is not black. Korobov's not black. Brandon Adams is black, but Hogan's not black, and neither is Derevyanchenko. So he's fought one black guy in his last 6 fights. So let's look at Canelo Alvarez. Okay. So can we say Charlo's avoiding black fighters based off of his resume? Right? Can we say that? Same thing, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So in Canelo's last 6 fights, he fought one black guy too. So he basically has done the same thing, Charlo's done. So Charlo's fought one black guy in his last 6 fights. Canelo's fought one black guy in his last 6 fights. So how are they any different from each other statistically? All right? Let's look at Andre. I mean, boxing is an ethnic sport made up of many different backgrounds, people from many different cultures, races, and backgrounds. And this whole thing about, we like to categorize races and ethnic backgrounds to a specific style. Not all black fighters are slick counterpunching guys. Deontay Wilder's not a slick counterpuncher, right? He's not a guy who moves and not a defensive wizard, right? James Kirkland wasn't. Shane Mosley wasn't. Like, to sit there and think that all black fighters fight a specific way, all Mexican fighters fight a specific way. Marquez isn't a brawler. He's not a brawler, right? There's a lot of Mexican fighters that are very highly skilled. Marco Antonio Barrera, he wasn't a brawler, Lots of fighters. Let's look at Demetrius Andre's resume here. Let's look at his last 6 fights. So he's fighting Liam Williams, right? That's not a black guy, right? Who's Luke Keeler? That's a white guy, right? Liam Williams is white. Luke Keeler's white. Sulecki's white. Archer Akhoff, he's also white. So Walter Katangwadangwa, African guy, that's one black guy. And Alante Fox, another black guy, but Jack Kolke is not a black guy. So let's look at his last 6 fights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's fought 2 black guys in his last 6 fights. Not much difference there. So Leon Williams, Luke Keeler, Sulecki, and Liam Williams, basically, he's a white guy. Again, what Liam Williams really isn't even a middleweight. Really, he's really a blown up junior middleweight. So again, who's really fighting the tougher guys? Billy Joe Saunders is miles ahead of Liam Williams by far. Okay. And I think he's a better fighter than Sergey Derevyanchenko. So let's just look at the history. I mean, is Andrade and Charlo fighting black guys? Joe, he says Liam Williams will beat Andrade. You heard it here first. We'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't pick him, but I respect your opinion. I respect your opinion. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's definitely not impossible. That's an interesting fight. I'd love to see the odds there. So both Andrade and Charlo themselves, they're not fighting black fighters either, really. Andrade in his last six fought two black guys. Charlo fought one black guy. Okay? Alvarez fought one black guy in his last six fights. So I mean, how is it different? How is it different? So I totally disagree with Terrence Crawford. Once again, I think if you compare resumes between Crawford and with Canelo, I don't even think it's a comparison. I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's close. So I was surprised about that. I was definitely surprised about that. All right, guys. That's about all I got for now. Until next time, talk to y'all soon. Make sure you tune into the Ringside Reporter podcast every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you check me out on Thursdays, Throwback Thursdays at the Roundtable on D-Style Boxing's channel on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm there with a lot of other guests, D-Style, G-Funky, Emil Carr. Make sure you subscribe to all their channels as well so you can catch me on Thursdays and Sundays. And I'm going to be trying to do more videos as time permits and give you my opinion on a lot of these stories and incidences that are happening. Another thing that I find very interesting here is this upcoming fight with Dillian White and Alexander Povetkin. I think I'm going to be doing a beating the odds with Beeb on that fight because I think Povetkin, who scored the upset in the first fight, he's going to be the underdog going into this fight. And I think he's live, and I think he's actually going to win the rematch. So make sure you guys keep an eye out for that video because that's going to be coming in, either tomorrow or at least by the end of the week before the fight happens. So until next time, Beeb is out. Talk to y'all soon. Stay safe and peace. Have a great day, man. Talk to y'all later. Thank you for tuning in.